Daniel noticed the shadow outside his bedroom window just after midnight. At first, he thought it was a branch moving in the wind, but then the figure stepped closer. He opened the curtain and nearly jumped. His neighbor, Claire, stood outside, staring through the glass with an embarrassed smile quietly. Daniel unlocked the window and asked what she was doing there. Claire raised both hands and said she wasn't trying to scare him. She had heard a strange noise from his backyard and came over to check. Daniel laughed nervously, realizing the situation looked much stranger than it actually was. Trying to lighten the awkward moment, Daniel grinned and said, "Nothing to steal here." Claire laughed, brushing damp hair away from her face. Then she looked directly at him and replied, "How about you?" Daniel's smile disappeared for a second because he wasn't sure whether she was joking even briefly. Claire immediately laughed and told him not to look so serious. She said she was only teasing, but her playful expression suggested she enjoyed watching him become nervous. Daniel leaned against the window frame and asked why she had really come over. Claire hesitated before finally explaining what happened there. Earlier that evening, Claire had noticed someone walking near the houses. She thought it might have been a delivery driver, but the person disappeared behind Daniel's garage. Because Daniel lived alone, she worried that something might be wrong. Daniel appreciated her concern, although he wished she had simply knocked first. They stepped outside together and checked the yard. Nothing appeared unusual. The neighborhood was peaceful, with porch lights glowing softly and distant cars passing occasionally. Claire apologized again for appearing at his window. Daniel told her he wasn't offended, especially because her strange entrance had given him an excellent story. Claire smiled and said she was glad he could laugh about it. Daniel noticed that she seemed more relaxed now. They had been neighbors for nearly a year, yet their conversations had always remained short and polite. Tonight felt different, as though an invisible wall between them had quietly disappeared. They sat on Daniel's back porch while the cool night air moved through the trees. Claire admitted that she had wanted to talk to him for weeks, but never found the courage. Daniel looked surprised. He asked why she needed courage just to speak with a neighbor she already knew. Claire looked down and explained that Daniel always seemed busy. He worked long hours, kept to himself, and rarely attended neighborhood gatherings. She had wondered whether he preferred being alone. Daniel smiled and admitted that after a difficult breakup, solitude had simply become easier than explaining himself to people anymore. Claire understood that feeling. She told him she had also spent years avoiding complicated relationships because disappointment had made her cautious. Neither wanted to repeat old mistakes. Their conversation became unexpectedly honest, and Daniel realized he was no longer thinking about the strange visit to his window about it all. Instead, he was listening to Claire talk about her dreams, disappointments, and plans for the future. She wanted to travel more, learn photography, and eventually open a small studio. Daniel admired her ambition. Claire then asked about his goals, and he confessed that he had forgotten how to make plans. She encouraged him to start again, even with something small. Daniel smiled and said perhaps he could begin by attending the neighborhood picnic he had avoided for months. Claire promised to save him a seat. Their laughter filled the quiet backyard, making the night feel warmer than before that evening. Before Claire left, Daniel asked whether she had really come only because of the suspicious figure near his garage. She smiled mischievously and said that had been the reason she originally came. However, once she saw him through the window, she realized she had another reason for staying that evening. Daniel's heart beat faster, but he didn't rush to interpret her words. Instead, he asked what that reason was. Claire looked at him and said she simply wanted to know him better. She admitted that her teasing comment had been partly a joke, but partly an honest confession too tonight. Daniel appreciated her honesty. He told Claire that he had noticed her too, but he had been afraid of misunderstanding her friendliness. She laughed and said they had both spent months waiting for the other person to make the first move. Somehow, That realization made everything feel wonderfully simple finally. They agreed to take things slowly. No dramatic promises, no assumptions, and no pressure. The next evening, Claire invited Daniel for coffee. Their first real conversation lasted nearly 3 hours. They discovered shared interests, similar values, and a surprising ability to make each other laugh without trying. Over the following weeks, their friendship grew naturally. They walked together after dinner, shared meals, and occasionally sat on the porch discussing everything from childhood memories to future dreams. The window incident became their favorite story, especially because neither could forget Claire's unforgettable answer to Daniel's nervous joke. Eventually, Daniel asked Claire on a proper date. She smiled and reminded him that she had technically been asking for his attention since the night she appeared outside his window. He laughed and promised never to make her wait that long again. Claire accepted, saying patience had finally paid off. Their relationship didn't begin with a perfect romantic moment. It began with confusion, laughter, concern, and an unexpectedly honest conversation. Daniel later realized that Claire hadn't stolen anything that night. Instead, she had taken away the loneliness he had carefully protected for years for so long. Whenever someone asked how they met, Claire would smile and tell the story dramatically. Daniel would always interrupt before she reached the final line. She would laugh and finish anyway. "Nothing to steal here," he had joked. "How about you?" she replied. And somehow that silly moment became everything together.